Good evening, everyone. My name is Jesse Berlin, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the albums by the Beatles. The Beatles are one of my favorite bands, and the reason why I wanted to do this video was because I noticed that Anthony Fantano, the Needle Drop on YouTube, hasn't really done a whole lot of material about the Beatles, which is weird given how acclaimed and famous the Beatles are. So I'm going to start with the Beatles' debut, which is Please Please Me. And I'm going to put this at C. And I'm a little biased because this sort of era of the Beatles, the early era, their more boy band phase, the more pop oriented phase, the sort of Beatlemania kind of era for the band. It didn't really do a whole lot for me. I saw her standing there. It's a classic. It's a good, solid pop rock song. I like Chains. I think that's a pretty good cover. I like Boys. I think Ringo kills it vocally. Do you want to know a secret's kind of an underrated gem? I wouldn't say it's like the greatest Beatles song ever or one of my absolute favorites, but it's for this era of the Beatles, I would say it's pretty good. And then Twist and Shout is probably I'm going to be honest with you, but it's probably my favorite song off this album. Just looking at the track listing, and it's not even a original Beatles composition. Moving on to their second album, with the Beatles, which I think I'm gonna also put at a C. I like Roll Over Beethoven a lot. I love the Beatles' rendition of that, and I love Money. That's what I want. I also think that that's a pretty good one. I also like Don't Bother Me. I believe this is George Harrison's first original composition with the Beatles, and I think this is one is kind of an underrated track on here. I like it. I like it quite a bit. It's one of my favorite off of this album. I think this has some of the weakest Lennon McCartney original compositions. Moving on to 1964's A Hard Day's Night. Now, A Hard Day's Night is probably my favorite of this early era of the Beatles, but yeah, A Hard Day's Night is a really, really good pop rock song. Yeah, actually more rock so than pop, I would say. Can't Buy Me Love is another solid song. I love it a lot. I'll Cry Instead is pretty good. When I Get Home is pretty good too. So moving on to Beatles for Sale, which is their fourth album. I'm gonna put this in D tier, but I think that this is the album out of all of the albums by the Beatles that contains the most filler, which is essentially material that I feel like I've heard before. It's not really forward progress. It's more just kind of repeating things that the Beatles have already kind of tried before. I will say 8 Days a Week is irritatingly catchy. It's probably the best song on this album. I also like Kansas City. Um, I think that this is one of McCartney's more underrated vocal performances. So moving on to Help. Now, Help, in my opinion, is the Beatles' most overrated album. And some Beatles fans may be mad at me for saying that, but I'm going to put it at C tier. And the reason I say that is because once you get past like the 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 handful of good tracks, there's not a lot. There's not a whole lot else that the album really has to offer, at least for me. But I mean, "Help's" a really good song. "Ticket to Ride's" a really great song. "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away" is also a really solid track. I like it. I guess "Dizzy Miss Lizzie" is a nice little closer. There's just not as much consistency for me. It is better than "Please Please Me" and "With the Beatles." Um, so I think I'll move it up to B, but it's probably B minus for me. Moving on to Rubber Soul. Heck yes. I love Rubber Soul. I gotta be honest with you though, the first time I listened to Rubber Soul, I wasn't that blown away or as blown away as I was expecting to get blown away, given how highly it's ranked. Not just in terms of Beatles albums, but just albums in general. Um, but the more I've listened to it, the more I appreciate it for what it is and also what it symbolizes in the Beatles discography. I mean, if you could split up the Beatles' career in two phases, it would be phase one, pre Rubber Soul, and phase two, post Rubber Soul. This was really kind of the turning point in the band's career where they definitely matured and grew as songwriters, and started really making solid tracks. "Drive My Car" is one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs. "Norwegian Wood," "This Bird Has Flown" is a great track from John Lennon. "You Won't See Me" is one of my favorite McCartney tracks. "Nowhere Man" this is when they start to get a little bit more psychedelic and their lyrics start to get a little bit more philosophical. They're kind of moving past kind of just singing love songs and singing songs that are a little bit more thought provoking and deeper, I guess you could say. Think for Yourself is an underrated George Harrison gem, I think. What Goes On is a nice little Ringo track. In My Life is a great song from John Lennon as well. And then Run for Your Life is a song where John Lennon is singing about murdering a girl if she cheats on him. So really dark lyrics, um, but it's also kind of a banger, instrumentally speaking. Now we move on to I believe, in my opinion, is the greatest era of the Beatles. So the second half, post Rubber Soul, and the first album in that period is Revolver. And Revolver to me is an S tier album. Taxman, fantastic song. Eleanor Rigby, heartbreaking, beautiful song. It takes what McCartney was doing in Yesterday and just takes it to a whole new level. I know a lot of people like Yesterday, but Eleanor Rigby is in my opinion McCartney's masterpiece. I'm Only Sleeping is an underrated kind of psychedelic rock track from John Lennon. Yellow Submarine, I think is actually a good song for what it is. She Said is a great Lennon track. Love it. For No One is one of my favorite McCartney tracks. Kind of up there with You Won't See Me from Rubber Soul. Tomorrow Never Knows is an incredible track. It is a psychedelic rock track that is unlike anything I've ever listened to before. It's got backwards guitar. It's got bird noises. It's got a lot of great stuff. It's a drug song, and you can definitely tell. Every time I listen to it, it feels just as fresh and inventive and groundbreaking as it probably was in 1966. Sgt. Pepper's an A. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, great song. With a Little Help from My Friends, great Ringo track. Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds, fantastic song, one of my favorite Beatles songs ever. Fixing the Hole, I think, is very underrated on this album. I especially love the vocal work from McCartney in like the last 15 seconds of the song. Good Morning is another underrated song on this album, but it's probably the most like rock song on this album. Now that I think of it, but I really like it. And then A Day in the Life is a masterpiece. A lot of people would say that this is the Beatles' best song, and I'm obliged to agree. I think it is the best thing that they've ever put out. Magical Mystery Tour followed Sgt. Pepper. I'm gonna put it in B. The Magical Mystery Tour is kind of a continuation of Sgt. Pepper in many ways. It's got a lot of the same psychedelic pop and psychedelic rock elements that were explored on Sgt. Pepper, but I do think that Magical Mystery Tour takes the psychedelic, especially the psychedelic pop element of the Beatles' discography and takes it to a whole new level that Sgt. Pepper hadn't quite reached yet. Magical Mystery Tour, solid opening, but I Am the Walrus is a great song. I love it. It's one of the weirdest, strangest songs lyrically and musically that the Beatles have ever done. But I really like how weird and strange and almost whimsical it is in a lot of ways. Blue Jay Way is another one of the strangest and weirdest tracks that the Beatles ever put out. It's definitely a lot like less psychedelic pop. Like I'm the Walrus, like I can see it as more psychedelic pop, but Blue Jay Way is really psychedelic music, like the pure definition of psychedelic music. And then the singles are also overall pretty solid. Hello Goodbye is kind of like 8 days a week for me. I shouldn't like it, but it's irritatingly catchy. And look, Paul McCartney can write a pop hit. Let's just put it that way. Um, Strawberry Fields Forever, great track. Kind of in a way it reminds me of A Day in the Life. Just how it melds together kind of pop and rock and psychedelic music, and also kind of a little bit of like progressive and symphonic rock as well. Um, with George Martin's incredible string arrangement that he made for this song. Yellow Submarine, I'm going to put in C. A lot of people will put this as like their least favorite Beatles album. I honestly, I don't hate it as much as other people do. Hey Bulldog is a great track, and John and Paul bark at each other like dogs at the end. Like they literally on the track they're barking like dogs at each other. So that's always entertaining to hear. Both of George Harrison's tracks are actually I actually like them. I think only Northern Song's a little bit too weird and out there, um, but It's All Too Much is actually, in my opinion, is actually a very solid psychedelic rock track. But moving on to the White Album. White Album, I'll put it A. The Beatles' only double album. I think it has like 28, 29 songs on here. Let me look. Yeah, it's got a lot of songs on here. Actually, before I was making this video, I contemplated putting the White Album at S tier because it is very, very close to S tier for me. But Wild Honey Pie, come on. It is such a garbage song that it literally pulls the White Album down from an S to an A. That is how bad this song is. That's how much I hate it. And I don't hate a lot of Beatles songs. Actually, I don't hate any Beatles songs, but this song. And a large part of the reason why I hate Wild Honey Pie is where it was placed on the album. Side one of the White Album is arguably one of the best sides of an album in music history. You got great, great tracks like Back in the USSR, fantastic rock track. Dear Prudence, fantastic track. Glass Onion, not as good as these first two, but also very good. Obla Di Obla Da, irritatingly catchy, um, but it's good for what it is. The continuing story of Bungalow Bill, pretty good. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, fantastic. Happiness is a Warm Gun, fantastic. And then you got Wild Honey Pie, just sitting right in the middle, a turd in an otherwise great punch bowl. Other than that, the White Album, it is kind of a mixed bag, I would say, after this point. I mean, Blackbird's a McCartney classic. Can't hate on that one. Rocky Raccoon, another McCartney classic. Can't hate on that one. Don't Pass Me By is pretty good. Why Don't We Do It in the Road? It's a really dumb song. Your Blues is a blues rock track. I like it a lot. Helter Skelter is people have talked about the song before. It's kind of proto heavy metal. It's a Paul McCartney track and he screams on it. So Revolution 1 I actually prefer over the single version of Revolution. Savory Truffle is a underrated Harrison gem. Revolution 9. I know a lot of people would say that this is one of their least favorite Beatles songs, and a lot of people have called it like the worst Beatles track. I actually really like Revolution 9. I respect the Beatles for doing what they want to do. They were extremely popular at this time. They still are, but especially at this time, this was like the peak of their career. And they decided to put out something as weird and as avant garde as this song. And I kind of respect them for it. It was bold, it was risky, it was ambitious. And they were just like, hey, we're going to do what we want to do and not really care what people think about it. These last two albums here, Abbey Road and Let It Be, I got to be honest with you guys, I've been talking for a while and I'm getting a little tired of talking and I'm running out of water too. So my throat's getting a little dry. So I'm not going to spend as much time on Abbey Road and Let It Be as I would like to. But Abbey Road's S tier. Come Together. Great track. Something fantastic George Harrison track. Maxwell Silverhammer, probably my least favorite track on the album, but I can tolerate it for what it is. Oh Darling, again, Paul McCartney, kind of like Helter Skelter, he screams on that song. So anytime that Paul McCartney screams is always an interesting thing to listen to. I Want You, She's So Heavy is like proto doom metal. It is like the Beatles at probably like their darkest and heaviest. I would say even more so than Helter Skelter. And the rest of this album, the rest of Abbey Road, the second half, is largely dominated by what a lot of people call the Abbey Road medley. I think those three tracks combined together make for one of the best closers for an album ever. And lastly, is Let It Be. Uh, Let It Be. I'm gonna probably put it a B. I like Two of Us. I like Across the Universe. I Me Mine is one of my favorite George Harrison tracks. I've got a feeling, though, it was a very good McCartney track. And then Get Back. I mean, Get Back is probably the best. I mean, let's be honest here. Get Back is probably the best song on this album. So that is my Beatles album tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do you agree with me? What's your favorite Beatles album? What's your least favorite Beatles album? Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.